that we cannot understand about anything which existed before us or something which is outside the boundaries of our intellect. For example, the meanings of the hereafter, whatever is going to happen after our life, whatever is going to happen once we die, what are we going to face? These are the things that no one can understand with the help of his intellect, because this is something that we can only understand if someone who has the knowledge from God comes to us and tells us about these things. So scholars reply to the questions of the Orientalists that just because we have intellect does not mean we can understand everything. This is the answer of the scholars, that we need someone from Allah's side. Of course, by Allah's side, we mean that we need someone who has been taught, who has been given the ilm, the knowledge of those unseen things, so that he comes to the humankind and explain to us what we have to do so that we are successful in the hereafter, we are successful in our graves, and what we do not have to do so that we are a failure in the hereafter. Please recite the Salawat al Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil faraj. MashaAllah.
So the argument of the Orientalists put forward has been denied and refuted by the scholars by putting forward this argument that, of course, our intellect is there to help us. Our intellect is just there for as a medium to understand and fathom what the prophets from God tell us when they come to us. So this question has been answered like this, that if our intellect is there, we need someone from the God side, someone from Allah's side to come and tell us about what is going to happen in the next life. Why? Now the next question comes here is that, okay, then what is the purpose of this prophethood? As we mentioned in the first part, if our worldly life is connected to a life which is in the hereafter, then of course we need to prepare for that life. For example, if you want to visit a place, if people who are listening to me from Australia, if they want to come to India, they would first inquire about the climate of India. They would first inquire about the currency of India. They would first inquire about a lot of things that they will have to go through while they are living here in India, for example, a week or two. A wise person will never go to any place without inquiring about the situations there, the climate there, the currency there. In the similar manner, if we are after our death going to a place, we should be ready and we should prepare ourselves before our last time comes. Now, this is something that we cannot just sit and meditate and fathom. This is not something that is going to be reported to us directly from God. God has created a channel and he has created a world of sources, that we say a world of wasail. This is the sunnah of Allah, that he has created this world on the sunnah of wasila. We need some source through which we can connect ourselves to the God. And that is why we say that this is the philosophy behind prophethood, that someone from the side of Allah should come to us and tell us how we have to live, what we have to believe in, so that our life in the hereafter is successful. Now, the second question that comes to our mind, and that has been explained in detail in our religious books, is that what are the characteristics, what are the traits that a prophet should have? What are his responsibilities? And once we understand the concept of prophethood and the characteristics of the prophet himself and the roles and responsibilities that he has to play in this worldly life, the next question that comes to our mind, and that has been there for the past 1400 years and has not been resolved, even though I myself say, and the scholars and the school of Ahlul Bayt says that these questions have already been answered and these issues have already been resolved, but still people have the habit of asking questions again and again, just because they do not want to follow what is from knowledge. Rather, they just follow their own the desires of their hearts. So what I was pointing towards was that if the concept of prophethood is clear for the Muslim world, the concept of khilafah and the concept of vicegerency of prophet will also be clear. Now try to understand this thing. There is a very interesting point that the scholars say, and tell to people. Usul Deen are 5. The roots of religion are 5. We say Tawheed, Adl, Nabuwat, Imamat, Qayamat. These are the 5 usul of our religion. Even though if you go and read the books on beliefs, you will see that the scholars discuss there that real usul of our deen are only 3, which is Tawheed, Risalat, and Qayamat, which is also called as Ma'al, the hereafter. But because people had so many doubts and there were so many conflicts among people regarding the discussion of Adalah and the discussion of Imama, that is the justice of God, and the Imama, which is the vicegerency, who is going to be the representative of Prophet once he leaves this world. There were so many conflicts between people that later these 2 usul, the asl of Adl and the asl of Imama, also were added in our usul deen. And why the scholars say this? Because if you properly understand the Tawheed of Allah, then there is no need to discuss if God is Adil or not. Because people started discussing, one group of people was saying that Allah can even send a prophet, na'uzubillah, to hell, and he can send a disbeliever to heaven, because he is God, he is Allah, he has the absolute authority, and he can do anything. He is not going to listen to anyone, or he is not under anyone. He is the supreme and he can do anything. What they believed was that if he is going to send someone based on their acts to hell or heaven, then he is, of course, under a compulsion, and God can never be under compulsion. This was their argument. Other group of people, they said no. I mean, the Imamiyya, we said no, this is not the case. Allah, because you guys have not understood properly the concept of Tawheed, that is why you are discussing these things. This is not that Allah is helpless or he is under compulsion to send someone to hell or heaven just based on their acts. Rather, this is because Allah is Adil and he is also not Zalim. That is why he will never do zulm on anyone. That is the reason, if you are someone who has followed the guidelines of the prophets and have the proper beliefs and have the proper actions that you have carried out in this world, you have the correct a'mal, then based on that, Allah is going to send you to heaven, of course. This is not because Allah is under some compulsion. This is because Allah is just, and based on the justice of God, he is going to send you to heaven or hell. So this argument was refuted like this. But because there were so many discussions, that is why the Adalat was also included in the Usul of Deen. And similar is the case with Imama. There were so many discussions after the Prophet because the proper message of the religion which the Prophet gave to the people was not properly followed. And whatever discussions and confusions and the conflicts we have till now and till the end of this world, we will be having it. This is only because we have not properly followed the message of Ahl Bayt and the message of Prophet himself especially. Please recite a salawat on Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Because Prophet himself said, and this is not only from our own books, this is from the books of the other school of thoughts also, and especially this hadith of Saqalain is there in all the books. No one can deny this. That's inni tarikun fikum Saqalain. I am leaving among you 2 weighty things: the book of Allah and my itrat, my Ahl Bayt. Ma in tamassaktum bihima lan tadillu ba'di abada. If you stick to them, if you hold unto them, you will never be astray after me. Abada, never be astray after me. And these 2 things will come to me on the house of Kausar. So this is the one and the only formula. I do not ask you to go and just search around for the different things and solutions. This is the simplest and the best solution for the whole ummah, for the whole Muslim nation, to find out if they want to know if they are really walking the Sirat al-Mustaqim, if they are really treating the Sirat al-Mustaqim. Just look at this hadith of Saqalain, that if you are listening to what the Quran is saying, and at the same time, if you are following the message of the Ahl Bayt, because these 2, according to the message of Prophet, whom we all believe was a Ma'soom and is a Ma'soom, and he will never say anything out of his own desire. Whatever he is saying is what Allah is saying. وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. This prophet does not talk out of his own desire. He says what the wahi of Allah says. So he has told us that this is the Quran and these are my Ahlul Bayt, and they will never be separated from each other. What does that mean? That means that whatever the Quran is saying, the Ahlul Bayt will say, and whatever the Ahlul Bayt will say, if you go and check, the Quran will be also saying the same thing. So if you stick to both of them, then only you are going to be successful in the hereafter. So this is the simplest formula for all of us. So within the brackets, I was just saying these things. So if we need to understand, we should know one thing, that whatever the usul deen we have, all these things are totally interconnected to each other. This is the point towards which I wanted to point, that whether it is tawheed, whether it is adl, whether it is imamat, risalat, or qiyamat, if you start discussing tawheed, that does not mean that you can confine tawheed and neglect all the four other parts. Moreover, if you start discussing tawheed, you will at a point reach to the discussion of risalat. At a point, you will reach the discussion of imamah, because these all five usul deen are connected, interconnected to each other. It is only because ulama want to make people understand these things. Just because we are able to understand these concepts, these chapters have been made in the books of belief. That the chapter number 1 is, for example, for tawheed, and chapter number 5 is for qiyamah or ma'ad, the hereafter. Otherwise, these concepts are totally interconnected to each other. If the tawheed of a Muslim is clear, he will never have a doubt or questions in the prophethood or the imamat. This is quite an interesting point. People discuss whether the caliph after the prophet was this person or that person or Imam Ali. I would say that someone who is asking this question does not have the sound understanding of the tawheed and the prophethood. If you have really understood tawheed, then you must know just the one line, and I will move to the next point. If you or anyone else or myself, if I have the proper understanding of tawheed, then I must know, and it has been multiple times stated in the Quran itself, that whoever is going to be the guide of mankind from Allah, then of course Allah is the one who will make him the guide, and no one from the public has any right to elect anyone as the successor of prophet or a prophet himself. It is only Allah who will declare anyone as his guide, and that is the reason we say that in Islam we do not have the concept of election, we only have the concept of selection. Recite a salawat on Muhammad wa Muhammad. So these are the points which need to be understood by the Muslim Ummah. So I was talking about the responsibilities and the roles and what should be the characteristics and the traits of the Prophet. So someone who is the Prophet of Allah, of course, is going to be what we say in our religious language as infallible, which is ma'soom. If you just go and take a look at the historical accounts of different people, you will see that even though they claimed that they are the vicegerents or the caliphs or the representative or the Khalifa of Khalifatul Muslimin, but if you just go and read the account of history and read their lives, you will see they are committing errors. Just to point out one thing from history, if you just go and read the khutbah, the sermon of the first caliph, you will see there that in his very first sermon, he is saying that, "Oh people, just like everyone else, I also have a Satan standing on my back. And if you see me going astray from the correct path, please rectify me, please correct me." I would say, by folding my both the hands, that this is something really logical. If there is something in the Muslim nation in front of you who has the ability to rectify, to correct you, then why let that person come and lead the Muslim Ummah? That is why we say that if the traits and the characteristics of the Prophet are understood by reading the Quran and the narrations of the Prophet and the Ma'sumin, then it is going to be quite easy for us. And this is the easiest solution for the Muslim nation. And I will point towards these things in the second majlis tomorrow, inshallah, that if first the concept of prophethood and the characteristics and the traits of the prophets itself are clear for us, it will be quite clear for us and easy for us to determine and know who should have been and who really was the representative and the Janashin and the vicegerent and the caliph of prophet. The first thing that I said was the prophet should be ma'soom. Why? How do we define the infallibility? By infallibility, we mean that a person should not make any error or mistake throughout his whole life. Whether it is in saying something, whether it is in carrying out, doing something, or whether it is that someone is doing something wrong and that person who is a ma'soom, whom we consider a ma'soom, should correct that person. Which is, in the language of religion, we say that he should be ma'soom in his all, in his sayings. He should not make any errors in saying anything. He should be ma'soom in his actions, that he should not do something which is not correct. And taqreer, that means if something wrong is being performed in front of him, he should correct that person and he should stop that person from doing that thing or saying that thing. And if that ma'soom person is not saying anything to that person who is carrying out an act, this is a proof for us in religion itself and in the discussions of the fiqh and the usul, that if a ma'soom was present in front of a person and that person was saying something or doing something and the ma'soom did not stop him from doing that, that means that that act itself was correct in the light of religion and in the light of Sharia. So this is the first thing that we say, that the prophet is someone who is from Allah. The verse itself says, هُوَ الَّذِي بَعَثَ فِي الْأُمِّيِّينَ. He is Allah who has sent, and you send someone who is from you. You cannot send someone who is somewhere else. So of course, these prophets have been sent to us from Allah's side. And the thing is that they should be infallible. Why? Because if they are coming from Allah's side and they are the representative of Allah, then if you are the representative of someone, because you are representing that person or that entity or whatever you want to say, that reality, then because you are the representative of that reality, you should be like that reality. So for example, if I come to your country being the ambassador of India, because I am representing the country, I am representing the government of India, I should not do anything which is against the law, which is against the rule, or which is something which can be considered as a blemish on the Indian image. Because at that time, I am representing the Indian government and the Indian public itself. Similarly, if Allah is sending someone by calling him as his messenger, if there is something that is wrong, na'uzu billah, then of course this is not only going to affect the image of the prophet himself, rather this is going to affect the image of Allah, al-ayazu billah. And that is the reason we say, let us not discuss about the prophet or the imam. First discuss whether you believe in the ismah of Allah. Do you believe that he is faultless? Of course, every Muslim will say that. So if Allah is sending someone on earth among the mankind as his representative, so of course, because prophet is representing Allah, he is Rasulullah, Rasulun min Allah. So because he is the Rasul, he has been sent by Allah and he is the representative of Allah, then of course, because as Allah is sinless, as Allah is faultless, in the same manner, the prophet is going to be faultless throughout his life. And in the same manner, whoever is going to represent the prophet after him is going to be totally faultless and sinless. And that is why we see in the Quran that Allah says, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ وَأَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. Oh, the Ahlul Bayt, Allah desires, and this is the decision of Allah, to keep all the sins away from you and to purify you a thorough purifying. Please recite a salawat on Prophet and his household. And that is the reason we see in Quran This is also there are so many verses and proofs for the infallibility of the Prophet and his household that we see. Allah says, "Ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul wa ulil amri minkum." Allah is saying, obey Allah and obey the Prophet and whoever is among you, the ulil amr. And this is an indication towards the 12 imams after Prophet alayhimus salam. So if this is quite logical for us to understand, if Allah is asking us to obey someone without putting any condition that you have to obey him only in the namaz and the psalm and in the prayers and in the fasting and hajj and all these things, but not in the worldly affairs, then we could have said that the Prophet, like the other people from other school of thoughts believe, that Prophet was ma'soom, of course, he was infallible, but only in delivering the message of God and not in his daily life, not in his worldly affairs. We say if this would have been the case, then Allah must have pointed out this in the verse. But the verse is absolute here. It is not conditional. Allah is not saying ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasula fi hadhihi al-umur. No, he is saying ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasula wa ulil amri minkum. He is giving the absolute authority to the Prophet and he is giving us an absolute command to follow the Prophet. That means that from the beginning of the Prophet's life till the end of the Prophet's life, and not only Prophet but after him all the 12 caliphs, throughout their life, whatever they are doing, it is as if this is what Allah has commanded them to do, and whatever they are saying, it is as if this is the command of the Allah that is being sent to us. Recite a salawat on Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Absolutely. MashaAllah.
That is why we say, let me just present another verse where Allah says in Surah Al Imran, "In kuntum tuhibbuna Allah fattabi'uni yuhibbukum Allah wa yaghfir lakum dhunubakum." Now Allah is giving a message to the people through Prophet that say, O Prophet, qul in kuntum tuhibbuna Allah, if you say that you are the lovers of God, that you love God, if you claim that you have your heart filled with the love of God, then what? Then you do not have to do anything apart from what the verse is saying. In kuntum tuhibbuna Allah fattabi'uni. Allah is saying that I am not going to accept anyone's love for me, whatever your claim be and whatever tall claims you offer or you put forward. But I am going to accept the claim of your love for me if you are going to follow the Prophet, if you are going to do the ittiba' of the Prophet. So if anyone wants to claim love for their Lord, because we have people who say, yeah, I do not pray and I do not fast and I do not do this and I do not do that, but of course I have a lot of love in my heart for Allah. Dear brother, if you are from such people, then of course you are going to be bearing a huge loss in the hereafter, because the real love for someone actually motivates you, actually helps you in getting near to that person by following that person. Even in this world, you can see if there is any personality that you love, you try to imitate them, whether it is from the scholars or your parents or any of your family members, or if we just talk in a general sense, any of these celebrities. You see people, if they love any celebrity, they are going to imitate the acts of that celebrity. Just to give an example. Therefore, if you claim that you love Allah, then of course Allah is not an entity that can come to you and you can start following him. That is the very philosophy why he has sent the messengers as his own proof, and they are the wajhullah on this earth. So if you claim that you love Allah, then you have to follow the Prophet. And here too we see that there is no condition that follow the Prophet regarding this and not regarding that. We simply see that fattabi'uni, that means follow me in every aspect of your life. And this is the proof that whether it is in this world or whether it is in the hereafter, according to what the people believe. On the contrary, we do not believe that neither in this world or nor in the hereafter we are not going to see our Lord. In this world we have seen Wajhullah and we follow them, and in the hereafter also we will only see the Wajhullah, which is Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, and there too we will be with them. Recite salawat al Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. MashaAllah.
These are the different proofs, and there are so many verses. Maybe someone from you maybe knowing a lot of more verses. وَمَنْ يُطِعِ الرَّسُولَ فَقَدْ أَطَاعَ اللَّهَ. Whoever has followed, whoever has obeyed the Prophet has obeyed Allah. Here we have a fa, which is used for which is used when we do not have any gap. So whoever has followed, obeyed Prophet, وَمَنْ يُطِعِ الرَّسُولَ فَقَدْ أَطَاعَ اللَّهَ, then verily he has obeyed Allah. Because if you want to obey Allah, then there is no help for you, then there is no option for you except to obey the Prophet and his holy household. So this is the philosophy, and this is the reality of prophethood, and these are the characteristics of the Prophet, that he is ma'soom, and he has the knowledge from Allah, and he is sent by Allah. No one has the right to elect anyone, whether a prophet or the vicegerent or the caliph of the Prophet. Dear brothers and sisters, today is the 16th of the month of Safar. After 4 days, we are having Arba'een. Inshallah, tomorrow, from whatever little knowledge I have, we will be discussing the concept of Imamah and its connection with the prophethood. For today, I am ending my speech here on the part of Fazail. After 4 days, we are going to witness the event of Arba'een. 20th of Safar, Arba'een, is the 40th day after the martyrdom of our Imam Hussain alayhi salam. On this day, we will be commemorating the martyrdom of Imam Hussain and his holy household, his 72 companions. But before that, for today, I would like to mention few events from the Sham. I was told that I can recite the Masahib in Urdu or English, whatever I choose. Let me start the Masahib in the Urdu language. But please, before that, recite a salawat. अजीजों, वो फिक्रा आपको इमाम हुसैन का याद होगा कि जब खैमे में वो चौथे इमाम से रुखसत होने के लिए आए और जनाब ज़ैनब ने चौथे इमाम का बाजू हिलाकर उनको जगाया, और इमाम को जब गश से इफाका हुआ, बाप अपने बेटे से विदा होने के लिए आया है, ये सुनना था कि चौथे इमाम ने अपने असे का सहारा लेते हुए बिस्तर से उठना चाहा। एक इशारा करके आना चाह रहा हूं शाम की तरफ। इमाम हुसैन कहते हैं, बेटा क्या इरादा है? तो चौथे इमाम कहते हैं, बाबा अभी आप ही ने तो कहा ना, जब मैंने आपसे सवाल किया कि मेरा भाई अली अकबर कहाँ है तो अभी आप ही ने तो ये इख्तिसार के साथ जवाब दिया कि बेटा मैं किसका किसका नाम लूं, बस ये समझ लो कि मर्दों में अगर कोई बाकी है तो या तुम हो या मैं हूं तो बाबा ये कैसे हो सकता है कि मेरी मौजूदगी में आप जिहाद के लिए जाएं? आपको याद होगा उस वक्त इमाम हुसैन ने यही कहा था, नहीं नहीं मेरे लाल, ये मारिका तुम्हारा नहीं है, अरे तुम्हारा मारिका तो बाजार शाम है, अरे जहां मुझसे भी ज्यादा सख्त इम्तिहान तुम्हारे होंगे, अरे तुम्हारे सामने तुम्हारे हरम को बेपर्दा और बेमकना फिराया जाएगा। ہاں میرے لال تمہارا معرکہ بازار شام ہے، تمہارا معرکہ دربار شام ہے، تمہارا معرکہ زندان شام ہے. یہی وجہ ہے کہ علماء بیان کرتے ہیں کہ چوتھے امام کربلا کے بعد جب کبھی بھی گریہ کرتے تھے تو 3 بار کہتے تھے الشام الشام الشام. عجب نہیں اشارہ کبھی بازار، کبھی دربار تو کبھی زندان کی طرف کرتے ہو. عزیزوں، میں انشاءاللہ کل 40 کے مسائب پڑھوں گا. آج صرف مختصر سے مسائب آپ کی خدمت میں عرض کروں. خدا آپ کو کسی غم میں نہ رلائے سوائے غم حسین کے. بے شک یہ آنسو ہمارے آقا اور مولا کے زخموں کے لیے مرہم ہیں. اگرچہ یہ مجلس آن لائن ہو رہی ہو مگر اہل بیت کا حضور ہر جگہ ہے. یہ سوچ کر روئیے گا کہ ایک دکھیاری ماں اپنے لال کے زخموں کے مرہم کے لیے آپ کے آنسوؤں کو لینے اپنے رومال میں آئی ہے. عزیزوں، وہ وقت بھی شام میں آیا کہ جناب امام سجاد علیہ السلام نے اور جناب زینب کے بہترین اقدامات نے یزید کو اس بات پر مجبور کر دیا کہ اب وہ سب کو رہا کرے. امام نے اپنی شرطیں رکھی کہ تم نے ہمارے جن لوگوں کو شہید کیا ہم ان سب کا تم سے سروں کا مطالبہ کرتے ہیں. یزید راضی ہوا. یزید نے کچھ مال و اسباب بھی دینے چاہے مگر امام نے یہ کہہ کے منع کر دیا کہ تم نے جو ہمارا مال لوٹا بس ہمیں وہیں واپس کر دو. عزیزو، یہ سارے واقعات ہوتے رہے. ایک وقت کو چوتھے امام کی نظر اپنی ماں جناب رباب پر پڑی. ان کے چہرے کو کرب کو دیکھ کر امام برداشت نہ کر پائے. سمجھ گئے کہ سب اپنے اپنے وطن واپس جائیں گے، مدینے جائیں گے. مگر رباب کے دل سے کوئی پوچھے ارے جس بچی کو ساتھ لے کر آئی تھی، ارے سکینہ کو واپس لے کے نہ جا سکیں گی. کہاں اماں رباب آئیے آپ ذرا قید خانے میں. ارے ننھی سی قبر تھی سکینہ کی. جناب رباب کو لے کر سکینہ کی قبر پہ آئے. اور میں سوچتا ہوں بھائی نے بہن کی قبر کو دیکھا ہوگا تو وہ مناظر یاد آ گئے ہوں گے کہ جب پرندے زندان کے اوپر سے شام کو اڑ کے جایا کرتے تھے. ارے سکینہ اپنے بھائی سے سوال کرتی تھی ارے بھیا یہ پرندے شام کو کہاں جا رہے ہوتے ہیں؟ تو جناب امام سجاد کہتے تھے اے میری بہن یہ شام کے وقت جب اندھیرا ہو جاتا ہے تو یہ اپنے مسکن کی طرف اپنے گھونسلوں کی طرف لوٹ کے جایا کرتے ہیں. جب اندھیرا ہوتا ہے تو پرندے اپنے گھروں کو واپس جاتے ہیں. ارے ننھے ننھے ہاتھوں کو جوڑ کر ارے بھائی سے سکینہ سوال کرتی تھی بھیا آخر وہ دن کب آئے گا کہ جب ہم اپنے گھر کو واپس جائیں گے؟ بھائی نے یہ سوچ کر بہن کی قبر پہ بڑا گریہ کیا ہوگا اے سکینہ تم ہمیں چھوڑ کے چلی گئی. ارے وہ دن بھی واپس آ گیا. آؤ چلو تمہیں مدینہ واپس لے چلے. مگر سکینہ تو اپنے بابا کے پاس جا چکی ہے. ارے ننھی بچی کو اب وطن کون واپس لے کر جائے گا؟ الا لعنت اللہ علی القوم الظالمین. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. رضا بقضائه وتسليما لأمره. اے میرے معبود ہماری اس مختصر سی عزا کو قبول فرما. یا اللہ محبان اہل بیت جہاں کہیں بھی ہوں ان کی حفاظت و حمایت فرما. دشمنان اہل بیت جہاں کہیں بھی ہوں اگر وہ لائق اصلاح نہ ہو تو نیست و نابود فرما. اے میرے معبود ہمارے علماء حقہ کا سایہ ہمارے سروں پر قائم و دائم رکھ. اے میرے معبود ہم میں جو مریض ہیں ان کو شفا عطا فرما. یا اللہ جو مقروض ہیں ان کے قرضوں کو ادا کر دے. یا اللہ جو بھی کسی مشکل میں مبتلا ہے اس کو اس مشکل سے آزاد کر دے. اے میرے معبود جنہوں نے دعاؤں کی التماس کی ہے ان کی دعاؤں کو قبول فرما. یا اللہ ہم سب کو اپنے وقت کے امام منتقم خون حسین سے قریب تر کر دے. اے میرے معبود ان کے ظہور میں تعجیل فرما. ہم سب کو ان کے اعوان و انصار میں شمار فرما. ماتم حسین.
یا حسین یا حسین.
کہا زینب نے یہ رو کر سنبھالو بیویوں چادر سرے عباس آتا ہے کہا زینب نے یہ رو کر سنبھالو بیویوں چادر سرے عباس آتا ہے کہا زینب نے یہ رو کر سنبھالو بیویوں چادر سرے عباس آتا ہے بلا لائے سکینہ کو بلا لائے سکینہ کو کوئی زندان سے جا کر سرے عباس آتا ہے کہا زینب نے یہ رو کر سنبھالو بیویوں چادر سرے عباس آتا ہے یہ غیرت کا خدا ہے اس کی غیرت کا تقاضا تھا کھلا سر دیکھ کے نیزے سے جو یہ سر گراتا تھا اور نہیں ہے پاس گر چادر تو رکھ لو ہاتھ ہی سر پر سرے عباس آتا ہے کہا زینب نے یہ رو کر سنبھالو بیویوں چادر سرے عباس آتا ہے بنا ہوگا لہو آنکھوں میں اس کی خود ہٹاؤں گی میں بچپن کی طرح سے بھائی کا چہرہ دلاؤں گی اگر ممکن ہے تو دے دے کوئی پانی مجھے لا کر سرے عباس آتا ہے کہا زینب نے یہ رو کر سنبھالو بیویوں چادر سرے عباس آتا ہے مجھے اٹھنا پڑے گا بیویوں تاسیم کو اس کی میں ام البنی کی سمت سے غازی کو چوموں گی سنبھالے سر کوئی اونو محمد کے یہاں کر سرے عباس آتا ہے کہا زینب نے یہ رو کر سنبھالو بیویوں چادر سرے عباس آتا ہے تھے سب کے جھولیوں میں اپنے اپنے لاڈلوں کے سر رقیہ ام لیلا ام فروا مادر اصغر اٹھی کہتے ہوئے ہر ماں سر اپنے لال کا رکھ کر سرے عباس آتا ہے کہا زینب نے یہ رو کر سنبھالو بیویوں چادر سرے عباس آتا ہے یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین اللہم صلی علی محمد وعلی
Brother Muhammad Taha, and thank you very much to our respected scholar, Maulana Sarmadi Rizvi, for joining us today. We shall end our program today with Ziyarat. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alayka ya Rasulullah. Assalamu alayka ya Sayyid al-Wasiyin. Assalamu alayka ya Fatima al-Zahra, Sayyidat Nisa al-Alamin. Assalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء السلطان يا أبا الحسن يا علي ابن موسى الرضا راضي بالقدر والقضاء ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان الأمان 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 من فتنة الزمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا مظهر الإيمان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان. عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وظهورك ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم
اللهم صل على محمد